The night is dark and full of theories. What if Tywin Lannister discovered the truth about Jon Snow? Let's explore the depths of it in this video. If this video gets 100 likes, we'll release part 2. Lord Tywin Lannister sits in the dimly lit solar of the Hand's Tower, quill scratching against parchment as he sifts through a stack of Raven's letters. The crackle of fire in the hearth is the only sound accompanying the rhythmic stroke of pen on paper. A golden lion sigil on red wax seals many of the messages on his desk. Correspondences of war, demands for surrender, replies from bannermen. Tywin reads each with cool concentration, his face an unreadable mask of authority. Then one letter, a plain, unadorned scroll, draws his attention. It bears neither sigil nor signature, only a broken seal of unknown origin. Tywin narrows his eyes and lifts it closer to the candlelight. Grand Maester Pycelle clears his throat softly from across the solar, peering at Lord Tywin with mild curiosity. Tywin ignores him, eyes flitting across the scrawled words on the parchment. His jaw tightens a fraction, the only betrayal of emotion. Tywin sets the quill down deliberately. For a moment, he simply stares at the letter in his hand. The flames glow, dancing in his pale green eyes. Pycelle shifts his weight, discomfited by the silence. "Is something the matter, my lord?" Pycelle ventures, his voice oily with concern and deference. The old Maester dabs at his brow, sweat gathered despite the evening's cool breeze wafting through the open window. Tywin finally looks up from the letter. His gaze is sharp as a drawn sword. Where did this come from? Tywin's voice is low and controlled, yet it carries a dangerous edge that makes Pycelle flinch. The Grand Maester shuffles forward. It arrived by Raven this morning, Lord Hand." "From the north, by the look of it," Pycelle stammers, gesturing nervously to the rookery tower beyond the window. "The bird was wounded when it arrived. We nearly missed it among the others. I thought it prudent to include it with your correspondences given its unusual nature." Tywin grunts and returns his attention to the letter's contents. His thin lips press together as he reads once more, ensuring he has not misunderstood. The words are hurriedly written, but unmistakable in meaning. The child lives. The Stark bastard is not his son at all. The boy is of the dragon's blood, born of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. Tywin's mind flashes back to a distant memory, the ruins of King's Landing after the sack, the cries of infants silenced by his soldiers' blades, the blood that stained his house's honor for the sake of securing Robert Baratheon's throne. He remembers Sir Gregor Clegane presenting the tiny broken bodies of Prince Rhaegar's children to the Iron Throne. Elia Martell's shrieks echo in memory as Tywin had stood beside King Robert, feigning surprise at the brutality he himself ordered to prove his loyalty, all to ensure no Targaryen heir remained to challenge the new regime. Yet here, in his hand, is evidence that one survived, protected by the very man Robert considered his most loyal friend. He closes his eyes, a slow exhale the only sign of the storm raging within his chest. Ned Stark, honorable, predictable Ned Stark, harboring a dragon spawn under the guise of a bastard son. The boy Ned brought home from Robert's rebellion, passed off as his own illegitimate child. Tywin recalls the whispers from years ago, the scandal of the Stark Lord returning with a baseborn infant, how Lord Stark endured the scorn of his wife and bannermen to keep the child. All the realm had accepted that as a rare stain on an otherwise impeccable honor. But now the truth stands revealed before Tywin in dark ink. Jon Snow is not Ned Stark's flesh and blood, but Rhaegar Targaryen's last living son. "What would you have me do, my lord?" Pycelle asks uncertainly, interrupting. Tywin's reverie. The hand of the king opens his eyes. He reads the letter one more time, committing each detail to memory. References to the Tower of Joy, to the dying breaths of Lyanna Stark whispering a name, to Ned Stark's sworn promise. It appears whoever penned the letter knows a great deal. They mention Howland Reed as the source of the tale. Howland Reed, the Crannogman lord whom none have seen since Robert's rebellion, who fought beside Ned at that tower. Tywin wonders for a moment if this letter could be some ploy, a lie sent by his enemies to distract or mislead him. But to what end? And few could know of the Tower of Joy in such detail. The letter speaks of the Kingsguard found slain at Lyanna's feet, of a babe born in blood. These are not common rumors. They are carefully kept secrets. Tywin's instincts, honed by decades of court intrigue, tell him this is no fabrication. It is truth, and dangerous truth at that. He rises from his chair, the letter held tight between forefinger and thumb. Pycelle takes an involuntary step back as Tywin begins to pace before the hearth. Ensure this letter remains confidential. Speak of it to no one, Tywin commands, voice cold as winter. Pycelle bobs his head rapidly. Of course, Lord Tywin. I am ever your loyal servant. If I may be of any assistance... You have done enough, Grand Maester, Tywin cuts him off, eyes still on the flickering flames. He lifts the letter slightly. Summon my brother Kevin to my chambers at once, and see that we are not disturbed. Pycelle obeys with a hastily whispered affirmative and shuffles out, leaving Tywin alone with the crackling fire and the bombshell secret in his hand. Tywin draws a deep breath, allowing a rare moment of unguarded contemplation to twist his features. His jaw clenches, and a spark of fury ignites behind his eyes. Ned Stark's deception has unraveled years after the man's death. The honorable wolf proved cunning after all, hiding a dragon in his den, deceiving his king and every ally. And for what? To protect the blood of the very prince who nearly destroyed Stark and Baratheon both. Tywin's lips curl into a faint sneer. Perhaps he had misjudged Eddard Stark all this time. The man played a longer game than anyone gave him credit for. But Ned is gone, executed for treason against Tywin's own grandson. The bastard boy, no, the Targaryen boy, still lives, breathing somewhere on the edge of the world at the Wall. Tywin pictures the far north, a desolate wasteland of ice and storm, where Jon Snow serves out his days with the Night's Watch, likely oblivious to the power in his veins. A wolf raised among crows, with the blood of a dragon pumping through his heart. Tywin moves to the window, staring northward past the city walls. Darkness stretches beyond the glow of King's Landing, toward distant lands he has never cared to consider. The Wall? He has not given it a moment's thought beyond sending the occasional prisoner to the Watch. The realm had more immediate concerns: a war of 5 kings, rebellions, and intrigues in the south. Wildlings and Grumpkins were not his concern. Yet now, the far north houses a threat that Tywin cannot ignore. Not a Grumpkin or Snark, but a boy with a name that could rally long-dormant loyalties. If word of Jon Snow's true parentage spread, it could light a fire to consume all of Tywin's victories. The Northmen would see in him a son of their beloved Lyanna Stark. The remaining Targaryen loyalists across the sea, or hidden in Westeros, might see a dragon prince reborn. And worst of all, his own allies. Some might question their oaths to a Baratheon king when a Targaryen heir lives. Tywin's fingers tighten on the parchment, knuckles whitening. No, this cannot be allowed. The secret must remain secret until he can use it to his advantage or crush it entirely. Behind him, the door opens and Sir Kevan Lannister slips inside, gray-haired and solid. Thou ever dutiful younger brother. He closes the door quietly. Kevin's brow furrows at the sight of Tywin's stony expression. You sent for me, brother? Kevin asks calmly. He knows Tywin would not call him at this late hour without cause. Tywin turns, handing Kevin the letter without a word. Kevin scans it quickly, eyes widening. He reflexively looks back at the door, as if to ensure it is truly shut. 7 hells. Kevin mutters under his breath. He reads aloud a fragment in a low whisper. The boy known as Jon Snow is the son of Prince Rhaegar Targaryen and Lady Lyanna Stark. His name at birth was Aegon Targaryen. Lyanna died for this child, and Eddard Stark hid him to keep him safe from the usurper. Kevin lowers the parchment slowly. In the firelight, his face has gone a touch pale. He meets Tywin's gaze. For a moment, neither man speaks, the gravity of the revelation hanging between them in the silence. Does anyone else know of this? Kevin finally asks, voice hushed. Tywin strides forward and takes the letter back, feeding it directly to the flames of the hearth. The parchment curls and blackens, the words turning to ash that flutters up the chimney. No, Tywin says quietly, watching the flames, and no one else shall, until we decide how it can best serve House Lannister. Kevin nods, regaining his composure. Already Tywin can see his brother's keen mind turning behind his eyes, weighing the implications. Though Kevin lacks Tywin's cold ruthlessness, he is dutiful and understands the stakes. If this is true, the implications, Kevin begins, but Tywin cuts in. It is true. We must assume it is. It explains much. Ned Stark's supposed infidelity, the presence of the Kingsguard at the Tower of Joy, the silence of Howland Reed all these years. Pieces of a puzzle long unsolved, now falling into place. Tywin steps away from the hearth. He moves with purpose to the large table dominating the solar. A detailed map of the 7 kingdoms sprawled across it, pinned at the corners by small lion figurines. The lion markers show Lannister forces deployed throughout the realm. At King's Landing, at River Run, besieged by Frey and Lannister men, at the Neck, watching the Greyjoys who hold Moat Cailin, and in the Westerlands guarding against any Ironborn raids. Tywin stares at the map, but his thoughts are far to the north where no markers sit, at the Wall, where the boy of Dragonblood hides among crows. Kevin steps to his side, following his gaze. The Night's Watch. A bastard in their ranks would normally mean nothing, Kevin muses quietly. But a prince? If the Watch learned of this, if the realm learned of it... He trails off. Tywin's face hardens further. It would throw the realm into chaos. Another pretender for fools to rally behind. The war we've nearly won would begin anew, Tywin states flatly. Every victory we bled for could be undone by one boy with the right name. He's of age now, Kevin remarks. What, 17? Old enough to raise his own standard if he had support. Tywin's eyes narrow at the prospect. The letter had been vague about whether Jon Snow himself knows of his parentage. Almost certainly not, if Ned Stark kept his vow. But others now know, Howland Reed at the least, perhaps some loyal Stark retainers, maybe even Stannis Baratheon if this letter found its way south. The thought of Stannis makes Tywin's teeth set on edge. That one had already spread unsettling truths about Tywin's own grandsons being born of incest. If Stannis got hold of this secret too, he could use it to undermine the Lannisters further, or justify his own claim by eliminating another heir. The boy is far away, at least for now, Kevin offers, trying to sound reassuring. At the Wall, bound by sacred oath. Perhaps he stays there oblivious and dies fighting wildlings. This war of the Five Kings may end before anyone has cause to invoke a Targaryen prince. Perhaps, Tywin echoes, though his tone makes it clear he finds it unlikely to be so simple. He clasps his hands behind his back. But we cannot depend on fortune, only on our own strength and cunning. Kevin waits silently as Tywin's mind works. The flames gutter, and the room falls into an anxious quiet, except for the distant revel of feasting somewhere in the Red Keep. King Joffrey's victory celebration is likely still underway in the throne room. The royal wedding to Margaery Tyrell is set to occur in mere weeks to cement the alliance, and the court has found any excuse to revel now that Stannis has been defeated at Blackwater and the Stark boy retreats in the west. Tywin thinks of that, his achievements to date. Stannis driven to ground, Robb Stark's forces stalled. All could be undone. Jon Snow might not care for crowns, but others might thrust a crown upon him if they knew. He must ensure that knowledge never spreads, or, if it does, that it comes at a time and manner of his choosing when it would only burn his enemies and not himself. Tywin turns to his brother. His decision crystallizes like frost in winter. Send word to our friends in the north. Roose Bolton at the Dreadfort and Lord Frey at the Twins. We still have a wedding in the works, do we not? Tywin's voice is soft but merciless. Kevin tilts his head. A faint look of distaste crosses his face at the mention of Roose Bolton, but he nods dutifully. Yes, Lord Bolton's bastard is holding the Stark's castle at Winterfell, and Frey still feigns loyalty while he stews over his grievances with King Robb. Both have been receptive to discreet inquiries for alliance. Tywin drums his fingers on the table. His earlier correspondences already set certain schemes in motion. He had long suspected that brute force alone might not break the young wolf of the north. Robb Stark has proven formidable in the field, besting Jaime and seizing the initiative time and again. But Robb Stark's one weakness is his honor and the loyalties he assumes of others. Walder Frey had been slighted by Robb's broken marriage vow. Bolton's ambitions and ruthlessness were known to Tywin through whispers of Varys. They were perfect weak links to exploit. Even now, Robb Stark is heading into a trap at the Twins, believing he will reconcile with Lord Frey and honorably mend the alliance by offering his uncle Edmure to wed a Frey girl. It was Tywin who quietly encouraged Frey's wounded pride and fanned it into thoughts of vengeance. And it was Tywin who promised Roose Bolton the title of Warden of the North should Stark fall. Those letters had been sent ahead weeks ago. Tywin had been waiting for the moment to draw the noose tight around the Stark's neck. Now, with the knowledge of Jon Snow's lineage, that noose must cinch even tighter, leaving no loose ends. We will proceed as planned with our northern arrangements, Tywin says carefully, each word deliberate, but inform Lord Bolton that there is an additional target of interest after King Robb is dealt with. The bastard at the wall must be seen to, quietly. Kevin raises an eyebrow. He draws a quick breath as if to protest. Slaughter at a wedding is one thing. An assault on the Night's Watch is another entirely, fraught with implications. Tywin, Kevin starts, concern in his tone, but Tywin waves a hand dismissively. I know the Night's Watch is sworn neutral and an ancient order, he says, impatience clipping his words. I care not for masterly old sentiments. We cannot have Rhaegar's spawn hiding behind the black under our very noses. The watch is a convenient cloak, but cloaks can be removed. Kevin grimaces but nods slowly. He knows Tywin will not be moved once his mind is set on a course. How do you propose Bolton handle it? The Brothers of the Watch will not simply hand the boy over or permit northern lords to kill one of their own. They take their vows seriously. Tywin's eyes flick up to a point on the map, the gift just below the wall. He recalls vague details about the Watch, their dwindled numbers, their lack of resources. They depend on the goodwill of the realm for men and supplies. Tywin can use that. Bolton will be Warden of the North soon, Tywin replies. As Warden, he can find ways to put pressure on the Watch or infiltrate it. We have allies at Castle Black already, in a sense. The former commander of the City Watch we sent north, Jono Slint, he could prove useful if properly directed. And surely, a few gold cloaks or Kingsguard volunteers could be assigned to the Watch as a gesture of goodwill to reinforce them against the wildlings. Men loyal to us. A thin smile touches Tywin's lips at the thought of using the Watch's own neediness to plant a dagger at Jon Snow's heart. Kevin still looks uneasy at the notion of violating the sacred neutrality of the Wall, but he holds his tongue. Very well, Kevin says softly. If it must be done, best it be handled discreetly, just as you say. A quiet accident in Kiauro, the cold, far from prying eyes. Tywin nods, approving of his brother's understanding. Exactly. The boy need never realize what he truly is before he perishes. And so long as he perishes, Rhaegar's line perishes with him. For a moment, Tywin feels a weight ease from his shoulders as he articulates the plan aloud. Ruthless, yes. Treasonous, perhaps, to plot the death of a man of the Night's Watch. But he has long operated in the realm beyond simple honor. He sleeps soundly enough after ordering the deaths of hundreds in war. One more boy's blood on his hands means nothing if it secures the future of his house and the stability of the kingdom under Lannister dominion. Yet, something nags at him still, a final detail. He turns again to the window and the night sky beyond. Somewhere, far in the north, beyond the reach of his red-cloaked Lannister guards, sits this boy of uncertain fate. Tywin has never seen him, barely recalled hearing his name except in passing as Ned Stark's bastard who joined the Watch. A gray face and black clothes, no doubt, with Stark's broodiness. But now he imagines features of Targaryen silver and violet under the black of the Watch cloak, commanding the loyalty of men with just a name. The thought quickens his pulse with a mix of anger and, yes, a sliver of dread. Tywin Lannister has not feared a foe in many years. Not since Robert's rebellion has the prospect of an enemy unsettled him so. He nearly smiles at the irony of it. A boy at the edge of the world, one who likely doesn't even know the significance of his own birth, provokes more unease in Tywin's heart than young Robb Stark ever did on the battlefield. That is precisely why Tywin will not underestimate this threat. He underestimated Ned Stark once, assuming the man would break as any traitor when Joffrey dangled mercy. Instead, Ned kept his secrets unto death, and now those secrets rear up to haunt the Lannisters. Tywin will not allow another misjudgment. He turns from the window, his face a mask of resolve. We must move swiftly. I will draft new letters tonight, Tywin declares. Lord Frey must be assured of his reward. Lord Bolton given his final instructions. And I shall send word to Pycelle to prepare ravens to Castle Black as well, raising some concern about wildling threats, something to warrant sending a few hand-picked reinforcements who owe their allegiance to me. Kevin bows his head. It will be done, he says quietly. As Kevin makes to depart, Tywin stops him with a raised hand, a final thought crossing his mind. And Kevin? Not a word of this to Cersei or anyone else yet, certainly not to Tyrion. His brother pauses, then offers a thin, knowing smile. Of course, it remains between us. The door shuts behind Kevin. Tywin Lannister stands alone in his solar once more. listening to the distant crash of sea waves beyond the city walls and the crackle of flames beside him. He retrieves a fresh sheet of parchment, dips his quill in black ink, and begins to write with swift, decisive strokes. The night deepens as Lord Tywin drafts letters that will alter the fates of great houses and low-born boys alike. In elegant script, he offers Lord Walder Frey generous terms and encouragement to exact his justice on the Stark King at the upcoming wedding feast, promise of River Run, and titles once the dust settles. To Roose Bolton, he writes of confirmation. Warden of the North shall be his, as agreed, for delivering the Stark host into Lannister hands and quelling any surviving Stark loyalists. In a postscript, Tywin adds instructions in cipher regarding the Black Brother who must not survive to see the next winter. Letter after letter is penned and sealed with hard wax impressed by the roaring lion sigil of House Lannister. Each is sprinkled with fine sand and dried, the words set in certainty. As he works, Tywin feels a grim satisfaction. This is the game he was born to play, moving men like pieces on a savasse, board, every contingency weighed, every threat answered with cold, decisive finality. Let lesser men ride out in gilded armor and seek glory in foolish battles. Tywin wins wars with quills and ravens just as effectively as swords. Tonight, he will dispatch death in the guise of marriage hospitality and frigid misadventure. By the time winter falls in earnest, there will be no young wolf in the Riverlands and no dragon whelp hiding in the far north. House Stark will be extinguished in all but name, and House Targaryen's last ember will be stamped out under the weight of the wall's snow, remembered only as a passing fancy of a dead man's honor. Tywin sands the final letter, folds it, and presses the wax seal. The lion's imprint dries as he holds it to the candlelight, examining his work. Satisfied, he summons a servant to carry the letters to the rookery. As the door closes and Tywin is left alone once more, he allows himself one last look toward the north. The winter will be long and dark, Tywin murmurs to himself, voice nearly lost in the crackle of the fire. But the Lannisters will remain the last beacon of order when it passes. He does not say the rest aloud, that any hope of dragons rising from winter's ruin will be snuffed out before dawn. Instead, Tywin Lannister extinguishes the candle, plunging the solar into darkness. The hand of the king stands amid shadows, patient and unyielding, as the distant hoot of ravens winging northward marks the beginning of the end for the secrets of Eddard Stark. Far to the Riverlands, hundreds of miles from the plotting in King's Landing, a somber host rides toward the twins under a slate-gray sky. Lord Robb Stark, king in the north, leads the column astride his great gray direwolf, Grey Wind, who pads restlessly at his side. By Robb's right, Lady Catelyn Stark sits rigid on her horse, eyes fixed on the twin castles ahead that loom on either side of the Green Fork River. The sound of the river's rushing waters mingles with the clink of bridles and armor as the northern army files toward the bridge gatehouse. Catelyn's face is drawn with worry beneath her wind-tousled auburn hair. She glances at her son. Robb's jaw is set with determination, but she can see the flicker of unease in his gray eyes. They have every reason for apprehension. The twins belong to Lord Walder Frey, whose alliance Robb once took for granted and then shattered when he broke his promise to marry a Frey daughter. Now, Robb comes seeking forgiveness. His uncle, Edmure Tully, rides behind with a nervous smile. He is to wed one of Lord Frey's girls in Robb's stead to repair the insult. Yet the silence of their Frey escort and the chill reception thus far has set Catelyn's instincts on edge. The procession crosses the creaking drawbridge into the courtyard of the twins. Frey, men-at-arms, and patchwork armor watch with unreadable faces as the Northerners dismount. Grey Wind stalks at Robb's heel, the huge direwolf sniffing the air and growling under his breath. The beast's unease only amplifies Catelyn's own. She touches Robb's arm. "Something's not right," she whispers. Robb gives her a reassuring nod, but he too surveys the castle yard warily. Too few Frey banners, too few smiling greeters for a wedding celebration, she notes. Only a handful of Frey's sons and bastards stand by the doors of the Great Hall, among them black-haired lame Lothar Frey and smirking Black Walder Rivers. They bow with exaggerated courtesy. "Welcome back to the twins, Your Grace," Lothar says, his tone smooth. "Lord Frey awaits within to host you and your honored mother and uncle. We are ever so pleased by the return of King Robb to our hall." Catelyn hears no warmth in his words. Robb stands tall, lifting his chin. "I've come to make things right with your house," Robb says evenly. "I thank Lord Frey for his hospitality and hope my uncle's marriage will mark a new beginning between us." Lothar's mouth twitches in something like a smile. "A new beginning, indeed," he says, exchanging a glance with Black Walder that Catelyn cannot decipher. They are led inside. The hall of the twins is dim and smoky, filled with the sense of roasted meat and stale rushes. Yet strangely, only half the benches are occupied. Frey men and women sit in clusters, eyes following every move of the Stark bannermen as they filter in. Catelyn notes that none of Lord Frey's daughters of marriage age are present. Odd, given one is to be wed this night. The Freys she does see are largely male, armed, and solemn. At the far end of the hall, feeble Lord Walder Frey presides from a high seat, wrinkled and hollow-eyed, an ornate silver goblet in hand. By his side stands a younger woman, a pale slip of a girl in a bridal gown, hands clasped nervously. That must be the bride, Rosalind Frey, Edmure's intended. Catelyn sees no sign of Edmure's famous charm on him now. Her brother stands stiffly near the dais, face flushed as he bows awkwardly to his bride-to-be. Robb steps forward to pay homage to the Lord of the Crossing. Grey Wind prowls at his side, eliciting gasps and uneasy shifting from some Frey guests. "Lord Walder," Robb says with respect, bowing his head, "I have come to beg your pardon for any offense given, and to celebrate the union of our houses." Lord Walder Frey regards Robb and Catelyn with his rheumy eyes, lips pressed in a thin line. "Offense? What offense?" An old man's quaver issues from those lips. "You broke a sworn promise to my family, married some stranger girl in the south, and dragged your mother here to beg forgiveness. Why, I cannot even recall feeling offended." His words drip with sarcasm. Catelyn's spine prickles at the malice barely concealed, but Robb holds his composure. "My lord, I cannot undo the past. I can only offer future loyalty and partnership. House Frey will have all the honor it is due." He gestures to Edmure, who bows low. "My uncle will wed your fair daughter. Our families shall be bound in blood and loyalty," Robb says. Lord Walder sniffs, leaning forward. "Yes, my fair daughter, though not as fair as the one you spurned, is she? Tell me, your grace, what happened to your queen?" Robb's face tightens. Catelyn winces inwardly. Jane Westerling, the girl Robb married in a moment of passion and grief, remains back in Riverrun and has caused all this trouble, but Robb answers steadily. "Lady Jane remains at Riverrun under my protection. She wished not to distract from this occasion or offend your house further by her presence." Lord Walder cackles, a dry, mocking sound. "Not offend us? How noble! He turns his gaze to Catelyn. "And you, Lady Catelyn, do you condone your son's betrayals?" Before Catelyn can answer, Robb interjects sharply. "I take full responsibility for any slights to your honor, my lord. My mother did only what she thought best to counsel me." Lord Walder harumphs and then breaks into a sudden grin, toothless and predatory. "Well, enough of past wrongs. We have a wedding to celebrate," he announces. "My honored guests, be welcome. Eat, drink, and let us put this business behind us." At his cue, servants begin to bring out trays of food and pitchers of wine. A troupe of musicians in one corner strikes up a lively tune on fiddle and drum. The tension in the hall loosens perceptibly as cups are filled and the first course is served. A thick onion soup that Lord Walder claims is an ancient Frey recipe. Yet Catelyn notices Grey Wind remains restless. The dire wolf has been barred from the hall by the Freys. Lord Walder insisted no animals at the feast. Robb reluctantly left Grey Wind in the kennel outside under guard. Now, through the open doors, the wolf's distant snarls echo whenever a Frey moves near him. Catelyn hates that sound echoing behind the music. The wedding ceremony itself is swift and efficient. Edmure Tully and Rosalind Frey stand before a local septon beneath the Seven's Aspects. Edmure smiles kindly at his young bride, and Rosalind gives a tremulous, relieved smile back when he gently tells her she looks lovely. They exchange vows and are cloaked as man and wife. For a brief moment, Catelyn allows herself to believe this might indeed mend the rift. The assembled Freys give a polite cheer. Robb raises a toast to the couple's health, looking at ease for the first time that night as the formalities conclude. Perhaps Walder Frey just needed to humble the king in the north a bit before reconciling. The feast resumes with more wine flowing. Catelyn sits beside Lord Walder's plump wife, Lady Joyeuse Frey, making strained small talk. Joyeuse prattles about the difficulty of managing so many young girls in the twins, and how pleased she is that one found a good match. But there is an odd flicker in the woman's eyes, a darting of glances around the hall that keeps Catelyn on edge. Robb is up at the dais, laughing as he speaks with the bride and groom, for all the world as if peace truly reigns between Stark and Frey again. Servants set a new dish before them, baked trout, the symbol of House Tully, spiced warmly and garnished with lemons. Edmure jests that it is so delicious he might have to send for the cook to come to River Run. Lord Walder merely raises a frail hand and a servant refills Robb's wine goblet to the brim. Time passes in a blur of uneasy merriment. The hall grows warm with bodies and drink. Outside, thunder rumbles. A storm is gathering beyond the walls. Catelyn finds herself sweating in her heavy gown. When she reaches for her goblet, she realizes with a start that her hand is trembling and not from heat. Grey Wind's distant barking has grown more frantic in the last few minutes. Catelyn glances toward the doors of the hall. The night beyond is black, but she could swear she hears shouting from the courtyard, a scuffle. Most of the northern soldiers who accompanied them remain camped in the yard, outside, unwelcome at the Frey table. Only Robb's personal guard and a few lords' bannermen are inside with them, unarmed as courtesy demands. She leans toward Robb's new wife's empty chair. Queen Talissa is not present here. In this version, Jane is absent. Instead, by Robb's side at the high table sits his loyal bannerman Greatjon Umber, red-faced from drink and laughter. Catelyn decides to seek him out, wanting confirmation of the noises outside. But as she starts to rise, the music abruptly stops. In the sudden silence, Lord Walder's wheezing voice cuts through the hall. "Why, my King of the North, you've drunk your fill and then some. Perhaps you would honor us with a dance." he says to Robb. Robb, who had indeed been sampling Frey wines liberally, stands with a good-natured smile and extends a hand to Rosalind on the other side of Edmure. If my lady wife does not mind lending me her bride for a moment, he jests to Edmure. Rosalind looks hesitant, but Edmure encourages her with a nod and a laugh. Before Rosalind can take Robb's hand, Lord Walder raises that bony hand again. Oh, hold! It's not customary for the king to open the dancing alone. We must have music, mustn't we? He gestures sharply to the musicians in the corner. They had been flipping through sheet music for a new tune. At Lord Walder's signal, they begin to play. But not a lively dance song. The first mournful notes that float through the air freeze Catelyn's blood. A sonorous, ominous melody of strings and drums, the Rains of Castamere, the Lannister song of bloody retribution, and the destruction of House Rain. Confusion flits across Robb's face. He knows this song as well. All the Northern Lords do. It's been sung often during this war, whenever Lannister victories were had. Why would Freys play it now, at a wedding of supposed reconciliation? Catelyn's heart pounds. Instinct screams that they are in mortal danger. She whirls to Lord Walder, whose withered mouth is curved in a malicious smile. Lord Walder, she begins, voice low and urgent, but he ignores her, raising his wine goblet. Your Grace, I have yet to give you my wedding gift, he says to Edmure and Rosalind. Edmure looks up, confused, a thin line of sweat on his brow. Rosalind suddenly begins to sob beside him, shaking her head, as if she knows what comes. Catelyn's eyes dart across the hall. The Frey men have risen from their benches, slipping toward the walls, toward the exits, each quietly donning mail coifs or reaching behind tapestries. She sees crossbows being raised silently in the gallery above. She grabs Robb's arm with desperate strength. His eyes widen at his mother's fear. Robb, she gasps. Armor! Get your armor! But it is too late. Mine is a gift of song, Lord Walder announces gleefully. The Rains of Castamere swells louder from the musicians, some of whom now tear off their festive garb to reveal chainmail beneath. They reach for crossbows hidden under their chairs. Chaos erupts. With a twang and a hiss, a quarrel flies from the gallery and strikes Robb Stark through the chest. He staggers back, surprise and pain washing over his face. More bolts whistle down. One embeds in Greatjon Umber's thick neck, sending the boisterous giant of a man crashing to the floor, gurgling. Another hits Robb in the leg, and he collapses to one knee. Catelyn screams. All around, Frey men draw swords and daggers, falling upon the unarmed Stark soldiers and guests. A few Northerners manage to overturn tables for cover or wrest weapons from their treacherous hosts. But the attack is too sudden, too prepared. On the dais, Edmure Tully rises in shock, only to be seized by Black Walder and forced down. Rosalind shrieks, covering her face. Lady Joyeuse Frey attempts to flee, but a crossbow bolt meant for a Stark soldier catches her in the belly and she crumples, moaning. Crossbow quarrels pepper the hall. Catelyn feels one rip through her shoulder in a flash of fiery pain, spinning her around. She slams into a table and falls, but frantically pushes herself back up. She sees Robb only a few feet away on his hands and knees, clutching at the quarrel in his chest, blood seeping through his fingers. Two of Robb's guards rush forward in a vain attempt to protect their king. One is cut down by a sword to the spine. The other manages to reach Robb's side and raise a shield against the bolts. Mother! Robb gasps, reaching a hand toward Catelyn. She scrambles across the floor to him, heedless of the pandemonium around them. Men are screaming, steel clashing. The Northern army outside, hearing the slaughter, begins shouting battle cries only to be cut down by arrows from the ramparts or trapped as Frey troops collapse the camp tents and set them aflame. Catelyn clutches her son. His blood seeps warm over her hands. Her own tears blind her, but rage and desperation drive her on. She looks up and sees Lord Walder sitting smug and safe on his throne-like chair, watching the massacre with a twisted satisfaction. There is a dagger on the floor, someone's dropped blade. Catelyn snatches it up, and with a wordless cry born of a mother's fury, she lunges at Lord Walder's wife, Joyeuse, who lies wounded nearby. Catelyn grabs the young woman by her hair, pressing the dagger to her throat. "Lord Walder!" she screams, voice raw. "Lord Walder, enough! Enough!" For a brief moment, the onslaught halts. Freymen encircle the dais, crossbows trained on Robb and Catelyn. Lord Walder peers down at Catelyn with something like amusement. "Enough?" he rasps. "You forget where you are, woman. Please, let it end. Let my son walk out." She sobs, the blade trembling in her grip against Joyeuse Frey's pale throat. "You've repaid betrayal with betrayal, blood for blood. Let him go, and I swear we will forget this. We will not seek revenge." Walder Frey snorts. "And why would I allow that? After all the trouble I've gone to," he says, coldly. "Your son will never forget. The Northern Lords will never forget. Better to kill the wolf in the den." Catelyn's heart shatters at his words because she knows he is right. Robb would rise from this if allowed, rally what remained of the North, and come for vengeance. Walder means to end it here, once and for all. Her eyes dart to Robb, slumped against her. He has lost so much blood. Crossbow bolts jut from his body like pins in a doll, yet he is looking at her, trying to speak. His lips form a single word: mother. He struggles to lift himself, to stand despite his wounds. The spark of the wolf is in his gray eyes, even at the brink of death. Before Catelyn can do anything more, a towering figure steps behind Robb, a pale man in heavy mail and leathers with the flayed man sigil of House Bolton on his armor. Roose Bolton. He has a thin sword in hand, already wet with blood from the fray, and he places a hand almost gently on Robb's shoulder as if to console him. Robb twists to see confusion and betrayal dawning. "Lord Bolton?" he manages, coughing scarlet. Roose Bolton offers a faint, cold smile. "The Lannisters send their regards," he whispers, and drives his sword up under Robb Stark's ribcage, straight into his heart. Robb jerks, a strangled gasp escaping him. The light in his eyes dies. Catelyn's dagger drops from her numb fingers as a wail of utter despair rips from her throat. Robb collapses, dead before he hits the floor, his young face slack and empty. Something in Catelyn snaps. Sound blurs. The screams and clash of steel muffles into a dull roar in her ears. Her son, her firstborn baby boy, lies lifeless in her arms, and nothing else matters. She becomes aware that she is howling like a wounded animal. With shaking hands, she grabs Joyeuse Frey by the hair again. The young wife is shrieking in terror and pain. "He's dead!" Catelyn keens, half laughing, half sobbing, staring at Walder Frey but seeing nothing. "Robb is dead." She presses the blade to Joyeuse's throat with every intention of slicing, of taking from Walder Frey what he has taken from her. But her limbs feel leaden, her spirit abruptly drained. The dagger clatters from her hand and she releases the girl's hair. Joyeuse scuttles away, sobbing hysterically. Catelyn sinks to the stone floor, her gaze vacant. Around her, the carnage continues for a few heartbeats more. The remaining Stark men cut down by Frey swords. the music of the Rains of Castamere still playing its grim tune. Finally, silence descends in the Hall of the Twins, but for the crackle of flames from overturned tables and the whimpers of the dying. The air reeks of blood and smoke. Lord Walder Frey slowly rises, leaning on the arm of one of his countless offspring, surveying the scene with deep satisfaction. "And so much for the king in the north," he says, almost to himself, with a dry cackle. Roose Bolton wipes his blade on a Stark banner that had hung behind the dais, then coolly steps over Robb Stark's body as if it were an inconvenience. Black Walder and Lame Lothar approach Lady Catelyn, who sits in shock, rocking slightly and murmuring a song under her breath, a lullaby she used to sing to her children long ago. Her eyes stare unseeing at the corpse of her son on the bloody floor. Black Walder raises his hand, and with a single swift stroke, opens Catelyn Stark's throat from ear to ear. Catelyn's voice dies in a red gasp. She slumps beside Robb, her blood mingling with his on the cold stone. The red wedding is complete. Outside the twins, rain begins to pour from the angry sky, washing the blood of butchered Northmen into the river. Grey Wind, Robb's fierce direwolf, is slain as well, crossbow quarrels riddling him in his cage until he howls no more. The northern war host is shattered, its leaders dead at their host's treacherous table. As dawn breaks, banners bearing the golden lion of Lannister and the flayed man of Bolton are raised above the twins alongside the twin towers of Frey. Messengers gallop out in all directions to carry word of this night's dark deed. The War of the Five Kings has lost one king and gained new betrayers. In a single night, House Stark, once one of the great pillars of the realm, is brought low through deceit and slaughter. And far to the south, a raven flies toward King's Landing bearing the news that will make Lord Tywin Lannister's lips curl in triumph. In King's Landing, a day after the raven from the twins arrives, the small council gathers in the Tower of the Hand. The early morning sun filters through the windows of the council chamber as Lord Tywin Lannister sits at the head of the table, hands steepled calmly. To his right, Queen Regent Cersei wears a satisfied smirk. To his left, Prince Oberyn Martell of Dorne lounges with feigned boredom, Mace Tyrell beside him. Grand Maester Pycelle putters at the foot of the table, sorting parchments, while Varys watches, with his usual unreadable smile. Standing apart from them all is King Joffrey Baratheon himself, who has insisted on attending, practically vibrating with excitement. "So it's true?" Joffrey blurts out, breaking the measured silence Tywin had maintained. "Robb Stark is dead? And his whore mother too?" He grins, a cruel, childish glee dancing in his eyes. "Yes, Your Grace," Tywin replies evenly. "The king in the north and his key bannermen were killed at the twins. The Stark threat is ended." Cersei's smirk widens. Mace Tyrell gives a complacent nod, though Oberyn Martell merely raises an eyebrow. Tyrion Lannister, who arrived slightly late to the meeting, stands by his chair without sitting. He had heard the news just moments ago from a breathless Lannister guard on the way here. His stomach churns with unease at the implications. He clears his throat. "Ended by treachery at a wedding feast, if the rumors are to be believed," Tyrion says carefully. His mismatched eyes flick between his father and sister. "The Red Wedding. People are already naming it." "A fitting name," Oberyn Martell drawls, swirling a cup of wine. "Weddings in Westeros are such colorful affairs." Joffrey hardly hears them. The boy king struts to the table and plants his hands on the polished wood. "We've won!" he crows. "I want them all executed. I want their heads. Sir Ilyn should mount Robb Stark's head on a pike and bring it to King's Landing." I will serve it to Sansa at my wedding feast." Tyrion flinches at the vile image. He notices Varys wince and look down. Mace Tyrell appears uncomfortable as well, likely thinking of his own daughter marrying this monster soon. Tywin's face darkens at his grandson's outburst. He speaks in a low, controlled tone that nonetheless silences the room. "You will do no such thing." Joffrey blinks, unused to being denied. "I am the king," he snaps petulantly. "The war is won. I'll have my glory." Any man who must say "I am the king" is no true king. Tywin cuts him off sharply, fixing Joffrey with an icy stare. Joffrey's mouth hangs open in disbelief that his grandfather would rebuke him so in front of the council. His cheeks flush red. "I have every right," Joffrey begins, but Tywin slams a fist onto the table with a bang. "You are a boy who has won nothing yet," Tywin thunders. His voice echoes. "Your father won the real war and took the crown. All you've done is make a spectacle at your name day and shed blood of the innocent. Sit down." The air is taut. Cersei rises, an angry retort on her lips to defend her son, but Tywin's glare flicks to her and she halts. Joffrey quivers, fists clenched, but under Tywin's withering gaze, his bravado withers. The young king turns on his heel and storms toward the door. "I'm not tired," he shouts petulantly, anticipating what Tywin will say next. "You are," Tywin says with finality. "It's been a long morning, your grace. Best get some rest." Joffrey kicks the doorframe like a child denied a toy and then vanishes into the outer hall with his Kingsguard trailing. Cersei watches him go, face tight with frustration, but she resumes her seat without protest. A quiet sigh of relief seems to pass through the council. Tyrion lets out a breath he didn't realize he held. Tywin, unperturbed, continues, "The crown owes a great debt to Lord Walder Frey and Lord Roose Bolton for their pivotal roles in ending the Stark Rebellion," he says, voice once more calm and measured. "Ravens will be sent with royal thanks and confirmation of the rewards promised." He looks to Pycelle. The old Maester nods, unrolling a list. Lord Frey is to be named Lord of Riverrun and Warden of the Trident, and House Bolton is granted Wardenship of the North in recognition of their new loyalty. Pycelle drones. Mace Tyrell clears his throat. "A bold move, Lord Hand," he says. "Though I'm glad the Starks are quelled, one cannot deny this manner of resolution is unsettling. Breaking sacred. Guessed right. Slaughter under a peace banner." Tywin's eyes flick to the Tyrell Lord. Unsettling? Yes. Effective? Certainly. The Red Wedding may risk the whispered ire of some, but it ended the war in a stroke. The small folk and soldiers who would have died in years more of battle are spared. Perhaps we shall even credit House Tyrell's blockade of the North for weakening the young wolf, if you prefer a cleaner narrative, my lord. Mace flushes, mumbling agreement. Tyrion bites his tongue. He sees Pycelle nodding eagerly, willing to spread whatever story Tywin sees fit. Oberyn Martell chuckles softly. Poison in the wine or a blade in the back. No matter how it's done, dead is dead. We Dornish know that well enough. His comment, pointed and bitter, hangs in the air. Tyrion knows Oberyn refers to how his own sister Alia and her children were killed during Tywin's sack of King's Landing. Tywin meets Oberyn's eyes coolly, but says nothing. A brief, tense silence follows. Then Tywin continues briskly. The North is subdued. With Stark dead, their remaining forces will either bend the knee or be dealt with by Bolton. The Ironborn still hold Moat Cailin and parts of the northern coast, but with the Starks broken, Balon Greyjoy lacks any alliance. He will be persuaded to withdraw or face the combined might of the rest of Westeros. Tywin speaks dismissively of the Ironborn, confident they can be handled. He steeples his fingers. Thus, the war is effectively over. Only Stannis Baratheon remains a fugitive with a depleted host on Dragonstone. We shall deal with him in due time. Perhaps the Red Priestess who serves him will advise surrender once she hears how easily kings can die. Varys coughs lightly. If I may, Lord Hand, the realm is greatly in your debt for this swift end to the fighting. However, whispers will spread. Some already call it the blackest treachery. They will say the Lannisters orchestrated it. Tywin glances at Varys with a faint smirk. Let them whisper. In public, the crown will condemn the base villainy of Walder Frey, of course, and claim no part in it. But the result stands. One less king. Tyrion finally takes his seat. He swallows the taste of bile in his throat. He cannot deny the logic. Thousands of lives saved on the battlefield, perhaps. But the dishonor of it leaves him deeply disturbed. He breaks the silence. What of Winterfell? He asks quietly. The castle is a ruin after Greyjoy's mischief, but the North will expect a Stark or someone to hold it. Tywin meets his son's gaze impassively. Roose Bolton will reclaim Winterfell from the Ironborn occupying it and hold it in the king's name. But as Warden of the North, he'll rule from the Dreadfort for now. Cersei interjects, a sly look on her face. And there's still Sansa Stark to consider, she says. The last surviving Stark child, as far as we know, since her brothers vanished. And she is conveniently already wed to a Lannister. All eyes shift to Tyrion. He bristles slightly. His marriage to Sansa remains unconsummated and strained by mutual misery. A childless marriage thus far, Cersei presses. We shall have to remedy that. Tyrion flushes with anger and embarrassment. My wife has just lost her mother and brother. Forgive me if I haven't forced myself on her in a moment of grief. Cersei curls a lip. Spare me. It's your duty to continue the Lannister line and secure the North through her claim. Or shall I ask Father to send you some moon tea for that little wife of yours to ensure she stays empty? Tyrion slams a hand on the table, rising partly from his chair, but Tywin raises a single finger and Tyrion halts, trembling with fury. Enough, both of you, Tywin says coldly. Tyrion, you will do your duty in time. When Sansa has finished mourning, I expect you to set aside your scruples. Tyrion's mouth twists in disgust. He slumps back. Across the table, he catches Oberyn Martell observing the family, spat with keen interest and faint amusement. Tywin shuffles some parchments. If there's nothing more pressing, this council is adjourned. One of Pycelle's ravens chooses that moment to croak loudly from its cage in the corner, startling Mace Tyrell. The noise breaks the tension. Chairs scrape as the lords and advisors rise. Cersei sweeps out immediately to check on Joffrey. Varys glides up to Tyrion as others depart, speaking softly. My lord, perhaps you should look in on Lady Sansa soon. The poor girl will need a friend in her sorrow. Tyrion nods curtly. He thinks of Sansa's bright young face crumpled in despair. News of her mother and Robb is likely only now reaching her. I will, he says quietly. As Varys drifts away, Tyrion notices his father lingering by the door, exchanging quiet words with Pycelle and a Lannister captain. Tywin's tone is hushed but urgent. Tyrion catches a fragment. Volunteers for the wall, Slint to coordinate. The bastard must... Before Tywin realizes Tyrion is watching and fixes him with a hard stare. Tyrion quickly pretends to be studying a document. He knows better than to pry openly. But the wall and bastard set off bells in his mind. Are they speaking of Jon Snow? His friend on the wall? Tyrion frowns, puzzled. Before he can ponder further, Tywin is striding past him, cloak swishing, all business. "Tyrion, attend me in my chambers," Tywin orders without slowing. Tyrion grits his teeth but follows. Moments later, Tyrion stands before the massive desk in the solar of the Hand's Tower, where just weeks ago his father had him pore over ledgers as master of coin. Tywin is removing his council chains and takes a seat, gesturing Tyrion to remain standing. "You disapproved of today's news, I take it?" Tywin begins, steepling his fingers exactly as he had at the council table. Tyrion exhales. He won't lie. Yes, it was cunning, but dishonorable, even for us. The entire North will loathe us for this red wedding, no matter what songs are spun. Tywin's expression doesn't change. Let them loathe. Let them remember how it feels to be treacherously slaughtered when they think to rise against the throne. Perhaps it will give any other would-be rebels pause in the future. Perhaps, Tyrion concedes softly, but one day the North may have its vengeance for this. We've sown a poisoned seed. Tywin's eyes bore into Tyrion's. I sowed the seeds to save our family and the realm. Understand, boy, I'm willing to bear the reputation of a butcher if it means my children and grandchildren live safe and prosper. 10,000 corpses rot beneath the earth because of this war. What's a dozen more at dinner if it ends the killing? Tyrion's lip curls. You speak of children and grandchildren, yet you set your own son as bait at that dinner. You knew Robb Stark was offering terms of peace. Perhaps he might have been swayed without blood. Tywin's jaw tightens. There was no scenario where Robb Stark remained alive, and the North bent the knee in time to assist with the rest of our enemies. Too much blood had been spilled. The Wolf Boy made his choice when he raised his banners, and when he broke his oath to Frey and married for love. The trap was sprung the moment he crossed the twins again. Tyrion is quiet a moment. He thinks of Sansa's gentle face stained with tears, of how she will hate his family even more now. He cannot blame her. Sansa will never forgive us, he says aloud. Tywin gives a dismissive grunt. If she ever hopes to see Winterfell again, she will have to try. You are her husband. Plant a child in her, and in a few years, no one will care that the Stark line continues through a half-Lannister boy. The North will accept your son as warden, if not in name, then by fact. Tyrion clenches his fists at his sides. How can you be so sure a Stark Lannister offspring will be accepted? Ned Stark's name is revered in the North. Ours, less so. Tywin stands and walks around the desk, coming to loom before Tyrion. Because, he says quietly, if they do not accept it, if they choose instead more rebellion, we will put it down, again and again, until they learn. There is a flinty finality in Tywin's voice that Tyrion knows well, the voice that brokered decades of peace after crushing the reins. House Lannister's way is submission or destruction. Tywin moves past Tyrion and gazes out the window at the sunny gardens below, hands clasped behind back. I orchestrated this red wedding to save lives, as I said, but make no mistake, I also did it to settle the future. One day you or your son by Sansa will rule the North in the king's name. One day my grandson will sit the Iron Throne without challenge. I will brook no resurgence of Stark romanticism or Targaryen fantasies. Tyrion's ears prick at that last bit. Targaryen fantasies? He recalls overhearing bastard and wall. Could it be related? Father, what of the Targaryen girl across the narrow sea? Tyrion asks suddenly. He has wondered about Daenerys Targaryen and her dragons since hearing rumors from merchants. If Tywin is concerned with future challengers, she must be on his mind. Tywin keeps his back turned. What of her? She is far away without ships to cross or armies to invade. She has dragons, Tyrion says. 3 of them, if reports are accurate. That's 3 more than anyone else in the world. Tywin glances over his shoulder with mild annoyance at being questioned. A curiosity, nothing more. Dragons do not win wars on their own. People do. If Daenerys Targaryen ever sets foot on Westerosi shores, she will find her welcome quite cold. Tyrion notices Tywin avoids directly answering what might be planned. Likely, Tyrion muses, his father already has spies watching Daenerys and possible assassins primed when needed. Tywin Lannister does not leave enemies unchecked, however distant. Tywin steps away from the window, the discussion clearly over in his mind. I have much to attend. You have your tasks as well, Tyrion. Go tend to your wife. Remind her that she is a Lannister now, and that duty comes before personal feelings. I expect an heir within the year. Tyrion's face burns with humiliation and anger, but he bows stiffly and turns to leave. At the door, he pauses. If you'll forgive one last observation, it's a rare enough thing for the phrase of all people to outdo the Lannisters in sheer treachery. How do we trust them now that they've betrayed their own guests? Tywin's mouth curls into a humorless semblance of a smile. We trust in their self-interest. Lord Walder knows he will have no allies if he turns on us. We have given him what he wanted. Revenge, a Riverland's crown, security. He won't dare cross us, not with Bolton and the might of the Iron Throne poised to destroy him if he falters. Tyrion nods once and leaves. Tywin Lannister remains in the chamber, alone, with his triumph. He allows himself a moment's reprieve, exhaling slowly as he sits back at his desk. The weight of years of war planning has lifted slightly from his shoulders. Yet new tasks replace them swiftly, securing the North, attending to the royal wedding now just days away, arranging the aftermath of Tyrion's trial for Joffrey's poisoning, perhaps. Tywin opens a drawer and pulls forth a fresh roll of parchment. Already he must send more ravens to roast Bolton with congratulations and instructions to press the remaining Stark loyalists. To the Wall, perhaps, a carefully worded letter praising the Night's Watch for their vigilance and subtly inquiring after the health of one particular Black brother. And perhaps to the Citadel, an inquiry into any records that might confirm or deny certain parentage rumors, should he ever need them as proof. He dips quill into ink. His hand is steady, eyes clear. The legacy of Tywin Lannister is nearly secured, forged in Pietine, letters and steel, and now sealed in blood at a wedding feast. Whatever morrow brings, be it a Targaryen girl with dragons or the discontent of the North, he will face it and bend it to his will, as he has done to all before. Far to the north at Castle Black, the wind howls over the top of the wall as night falls. Jon Snow stands atop the wooden stairs of the wall's inner rampart, peering into the darkness beyond the gate. The tunnel is barred and blocked with debris. Below, the massive wooden gate, reinforced with cold iron, stands shut. Yet beyond, in the gloomy evening, the sounds of drums and war horns echo across the snowfield. Mance Rayder's wildling army has arrived. Jon's black cloak whips around him in the gusts. His breath mists before his face. Despite the chill, sweat beads on his brow beneath the rim of his battered black helm. He grips the hilt of Longclaw, the Valyrian steel sword at his hip, his last gift from the late Lord Commander Mormont. The weight of command now rests unexpectedly on Jon. Acting Lord Commander Sir Alliser Thorne was wounded earlier in a skirmish, and the Night's Watch is scattered and leaderless. The duty has fallen to Jon to organize their desperate defense. Below him in the yard, A ragged few dozen black brothers move with frantic purpose, stacking barrels of pitch and arranging sharpened stakes. They are so few, hardly more than 40 fighting men remain within Castle Black's walls. And outside, by the fires glimmering through the forest, wait thousands of wildlings. Thens, hornfoots, giants, even mammoths. Samwell Tarly rushes up to Jon's side, panting in the cold air. "The south gate is secured as best we could," Sam stammers, pushing his glasses up his nose. "But if they break through?" Jon nods curtly, placing a gloved hand on Sam's shoulder. "We hold the tunnel or we die. There's no middle ground." Below, Gren and Pip man the scorpions, large mounted crossbows, pointed at the gate. Ed, Tollet, and a handful of others knock arrows on the catwalks. All wear faces pale but determined. A lone horn blast suddenly echoes from the darkness beyond the wall. Then another, and another. Mance's signal for attack. A great chorus of guttural war cries follows, filling the night. "Archers, knock and draw!" Jon shouts. "Loose!" The first wave of arrows arcs over the gate. Agonized shrieks tell Jon they've hit targets. But a thunderous roar resounds, one of the giants pulling a mammoth-drawn ram toward the gate. In the flicker of burning torches, Jon sees them, enormous shaggy shapes, lumbering forward across the killing ground, a massive log in their grip as a battering ram. Boom! The log smashes into the outer gate. The old wood groans. "Reload! Fire at will!" Jon calls. Flaming arrows streak out, and one lodges in a giant's shoulder. The beast roars, but presses on. The mammoth trumpets in anger as more arrows pepper its shaggy hide. On the wall above, a different battle rages. Wildling climbers and raiders who had scaled the eastern side earlier pour over, engaging brothers in brutal close combat on the icy heights. Distant clangs of steel and screams drift down. The watch is stretched desperately thin. Jon's heart hammers. He knows if the outer gate fails, they must fall back to the inner gate inside the tunnel, make a last stand there. His brothers' faces around him are taut with fear, but they hold. Suddenly, a giant's inhuman bellow signals success. The outer gate shatters under the ram's impact. Through the torn gate, wildlings charge into the tunnel, torches and axes in hand. "To the tunnel!" Jon yells. Gren, Pip, and several men, including the hulking Donal Noy, rush into the tunnel to hold the inner gate. Before Jon can follow, a savage snarl stops him. From a dark corner of the yard, a figure clad in black leaps at Jon with a raised dagger. One of his own brothers. No, Jon realizes with shock. It's one of the recent recruits. They took in from the dungeons of King's Landing. The man's eyes are wild as he brings the dagger down at Jon's neck. Ghost, Jon's albino direwolf, appears as if from nowhere and intercepts, barreling into the attacker with his massive white form. The false brother screams as Ghost's jaws clamp on his arm, bones crunching. They tumble in the snow. In a heartbeat, the would-be assassin is on his back, Ghost's teeth at his throat. Jon stares, heart pounding from the near miss. Why? There's no time to wonder. He calls Ghost off with a sharp whistle. Ghost releases the dying man, muzzle red with blood, and Jon races to join the others at the tunnel. Inside the ice tunnel through the wall, the clamor is deafening. Half a dozen black brothers brace the inner iron gate as the wildlings at the far end of the tunnel push the ram splintering through the last wooden barricade. Donal Noy, Castle Black's one-armed master-at-arms, roars, "Hold, damn you, hold!" The gate bucks under a tremendous impact. A mammoth's tusk pokes through the gap for an instant before retreating. Gren recites the Night's Watch vow at the top of his lungs as he strains against the gate, voice cracking but determined. For this night and all nights to come. Others join in a ragged chorus, the ancient words giving them strength. Jon skids in beside Gren, adding his weight to the gate. The tunnel shakes with another thunderous boom. The gate splits slightly at the hinges, but holds, for now. Another boom. The wildlings scream and shove. The gate groans. And then, a sudden blast of trumpet from outside, but not the crude horns of wildlings. This is a trumpet of high steel, a battle charge from beyond the tree line. Confused shouts echo from the wildlings in the tunnel as many turn from the gate. Jon hears it too. Distant war cries in the common tongue, the clash of steel on steel outside, mingling with the shrieks of wildling attackers. Something is happening beyond the wall. After one more feeble push, the assault on the inner gate falters. Through the ragged gap in the tunnel's debris, Jon sees wildlings retreating, their torchlight bobbing away from the gate as they run. In their wake, they leave their dead and dying peppered with arrows. "They're falling back!" Pip gasps, incredulous. "Seven hells! What's happening out there?" Gren wheezes, lowering his shoulder from the gate. Jon steps back, chest heaving. He has no answer. Could it be reinforcements? But from where? He doesn't wait to find out secondhand. "Open the gate," he orders. Donal Noy eyes him as if he's mad. "What if it's a trick? We'll secure the tunnel mouth and see. Open it!" Reluctantly, the brothers heave the battered inner gate aside. Jon raises a torch and creeps forward over the broken timbers of the outer gate. The sight beyond the wall takes his breath away. In the snowy plain before Castle Black, mounted knights in gleaming armor gallop through the remnants of the wildling camp, cutting down man and giant alike. Hundreds of cavalry, no thousands, fly a flaming red heart on their banners, slamming into the unsuspecting wildling rear lines. The wildling army, caught between the wall and this new foe, is in disarray. At the head of the cavalry, a great stag banner waves in the wind, the crowned stag of House Baratheon, surrounded by the blaze of the Lord of Light. Beneath it rides Stannis Baratheon himself, jaw grimly set, sword raised as he leads the charge. From the gate, Jon watches in astonishment as disciplined southern knights rout the wild horde that had nearly overwhelmed the watch. Giants bellow in fear as horsemen encircle them with spears. A dozen mammoths run trumpeting in panic, riderless and lost. The free folk break and scatter, many throwing down weapons, fleeing toward the trees only to be ridden down or captured by grim-faced men-at-arms. It is over in minutes. The largest part of Mance's host has been smashed against Stannis Baratheon's unexpected anvil. Jon steps fully out into the open, breathing hard, sword still in hand. The brothers of the Watch trickle out behind him, equally stunned at the swift reversal. They survived the night, and not by their own strength alone. On the battlefield, pockets of fighting remain. Jon's keen eye picks out one particularly large bearded man trading blows with several Baratheon soldiers. Tormund Giantsbane, Jon realizes, one of Mance's fiercest raiders. Tormund is soon overwhelmed, beaten to the ground and shackled. Elsewhere, a giant lies dead, peppered by Baratheon arrows, a fallen mammoth at its side. Nearer the tree line, a knot of mounted knights surround a tall, formidable figure in fur cloak and antlered helm. Mance Rayder himself has been cornered. Jon watches as Mance lowers his sword, seeing his army in ruin. He surrenders, dropping to his knees as Stannis Baratheon rides up to accept his yielded sword. The king's men roar victory. The king beyond the wall is defeated by the king from the south. Soon after, the gate of Castle Black is fully opened. King Stannis enters the courtyard at the head of his column, his red gold armor shining even in the dim morning light. His face is hard, bearded with defeat and determination in equal measure. His eyes are cold blue ice as he surveys the ruin of the wildling siege. Behind him, they drag the captive Mance Rayder in chains, along with dozens of other prisoners, including Tormund. The Black Brothers gather uncertainly. This is the first time in living memory a king with an army has come to the Night's Watch's aid. Lord Janos Slynt, former commander of the City Watch turned Black Brother, rushes forward, thinking to ingratiate himself. "Your Grace," he bows low, voice oily. "On behalf of the Night's Watch, we Stannis ignores Slynt entirely. The king's cold gaze searches the crowd and lands on Jon, who stands toward the front, dirtied with soot and blood, hair tousled from battle. Jon steps forward and kneels, recalling his vows that the Watch takes no part in the politics of the realm. "Your Grace," he says respectfully, "Jon Snow of the Night's Watch, thank you for aiding us. Without you," he trails off. Stannis appraises the young man before him. "You are the one they call the Bastard of Winterfell," Stannis says bluntly. Jon flushes at the term but keeps his head bowed. "I was raised at Winterfell, sire, but I am a man of the Night's Watch, sworn to take no wife, hold no lands." Stannis grunts. He dismounts from his horse, passing his sword to a squire. He looks weary from hard travel and harder war, yet an unyielding strength radiates from him. Melisandre, the Red Priestess, rides in behind the king on a pale horse. Her red robes flow like fire. She surveys Castle Black with knowing, ruby-bright eyes, which come to rest curiously upon Jon Snow. "Your name, Snow," Stannis mutters, eyeing Jon's face in the dawn light. "You resemble your father." Jon tenses. His heart still aches from the news of Robb and Catelyn's murder. A raven had reached Castle Black only a day past to inform him and the Watch of the terrible fate of his kin. He wonders if Stannis knows. "My father was Eddard Stark," Jon says quietly. Stannis nods. "He was an honorable man. He died for that honor and for opposing treason." Stannis' words are gruff but carry a grudging respect. Jon meets the king's stern gaze. "Lord Eddard died." "For the truth," Jon agrees carefully. Stannis studies him. "We have all lost much in this war. I offer my condolences for your kin, Lord Snow." The usage of Lord startles Jon. He glances up. "I am no lord, your grace. I am a brother of the Watch." Stannis' jaw tightens. "Perhaps, but you are also Lyanna Stark's son, are you not?" The words drop like a thunderclap. For an instant, the bustle of the yard fades, and Jon feels only the pounding of his heart in his ears. How could Stannis know anything of Lyanna and him? He hears a soft gasp behind him. Sam, wide-eyed, overhearing. Several brothers exchange confused looks. Janos Slynt frowns deeply, but Melisandre, still mounted, smiles enigmatically as if she expected this moment. Jon struggles for words. My mother was a common woman," he begins, reflexively repeating the story he's known all his life. "Named Willa, or so I was told." Stannis raises an eyebrow. Is that what Eddard Stark claimed? Convenient. His lips curl in a hint of disdain. "My brother Robert was too blind to see many things. It appears Ned Stark's bastardy tale was yet another deception in a kingdom filled with them." Jon's heart hammers. If Stannis believes Jon is Lyanna's, does he know the rest? Could he know that Jon's father? Melisandre interjects in a warm tone, trotting her horse closer. "Your Grace, the Wall is no place for such revelations," she coos. Let us not forget the greater war, the war still to come. The Lord of Light has guided you here to be the saving fire in the darkness." She fixes her red gaze on Jon, and he feels an unsettling warmth, as if her eyes can see straight through him. There will be time to discuss parentage and bloodlines later, Stannis concedes with a curt nod to the priestess. He turns back to Jon. "For now, I intend to make use of whatever strength remains in the north. I require the cooperation of the Night's Watch and the loyalty of northern folk. The wall must become my base against the foes that remain. This king beyond the wall, and the false kings to the south alike." Jon slowly rises to his feet, unsure what to say. "The Watch takes no part in the wars of the Seven Kingdoms, Your Grace," he says carefully, reciting the age-old stance. "We are here to guard against what lies beyond the wall." He eyes the captive wildlings and adds, "But we are grateful for your aid against the wildling threat." Stannis frowns. "Fine line. Your neutrality nearly got you all killed tonight, boy. If not for me, you'd be little more than another corpse in the snow." His harsh words sting with truth. Jon bows his head. "Even so, we are bound by oath. The Watch cannot openly side with any king or lord, only with the realm as a whole." Stannis' face darkens slightly. He is not a man who enjoys quibbling over vows, but Melisandre's hand touches his arm lightly, calming him. "There are ways, Your Grace," she murmurs, eyes still on Jon. "Not all wars are of the realm, and not all allegiances are forbidden." Stannis considers Jon once more measuringly. "Tell me, Snow, if you had to choose between your vows and your family, what would you choose?" Jon tenses, clenching his jaw. He recalls Maester Aemon's words, "Love is the death of duty." Stannis waits, gaze unwavering. Jon's mind churns. He has little family left to even choose. His father gone, Robb and Catelyn brutally slain, Bran and Rickon vanished, only perhaps Sansa in the south. His duty is all he has now. Finally, Jon meets Stannis' stare. "My vows are my family, Your Grace," he says quietly but firmly. "I will not break them, not even for a crown." A silence follows. A muscle in Stannis' cheek twitches, though whether in frustration or admiration, Jon cannot tell. Before Stannis can reply, Melisandre speaks up. "You have the blood of kings in you, Jon Snow," she says in a voice meant for his ears alone. "Mark that, even if you choose the path of duty." Jon glances at her, unsettled. Stannis clears his throat. "Very well. If you will not bend, then you'll continue as you are, as Lord Commander Snow." "Presumably," Stannis says, noting how the other brothers are looking at Jon with newfound respect after the battle. "But know this, I still mean to secure the North. The Stark line is extinguished in the male line as far as the realm is concerned. I offered to legitimize you and name you Lord of Winterfell. My terms still stand if you reconsider." Jon takes a long breath. The offer tempts a buried part of him, Jon Stark of Winterfell, avenging his father and brother with the might of Stannis Baratheon behind him. But he pictures the faces of Grenn, Pyp, Samwell, and the other brothers who fought and bled with him this night. He thinks of Maester Aemon up in the tower, kind and blind, and counting on Jon to do what is right. And he remembers Ned Stark raising him to honor his word, to be dutiful even when it is hard. "I thank you for the honor, Your Grace," he says slowly, "but I cannot accept. I am a brother of the Night's Watch. My place is here, defending the wall. The North must find another Stark if it needs one." Stannis' lips press into a narrow line. He gives a curt nod. "So be it. The offer will not be made again." Jon bows his head once more. "I understand." Stannis looks as though he would say more, but then he simply turns to Davos Seaworth, who has ridden up and dismounted nearby. Thus, King begins giving orders to make camp and tend to the injured, to gather the wildling prisoners. Melisandre lingers a moment, looking at Jon with an indecipherable smile. "The Lord of Light has great purpose for you, Lord Snow," she murmurs, as if she knows some secret Jon does not. With that, she moves on, red robes trailing behind as she joins Stannis' side. Jon releases a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. The adrenaline of battle is ebbing, leaving exhaustion and confusion in its wake. So much has changed in a single night. Stannis Baratheon here at the Wall, offering him Winterfell, speaking of his mother Lyanna. The world seems turned upside down. Evening has fully given way to dawn now. Pale sunlight crests the horizon, illuminating the carnage around Castle Black. The bodies of wildlings, the immense carcass of a fallen giant, the still smoldering remains of siege fires. Brothers of the Watch move among the dead with somber faces, gathering their own, fallen for pyres and tending to injured foes with what little supplies they have. Jon turns and is startled to see Samwell beside him, eyes wide behind his glasses. "Jon!" Sam bursts out, an anxious smile on his face. "You're alive! We're alive!" He grips Jon's arm tightly, as if to reassure himself. Jon manages a tired grin. "I suppose we are." Sam glances behind Jon at the bustling king's men and wildling captives. "That's truly Stannis Baratheon? The one true king? Here?" Jon nods. "It is." Sam shakes his head in amazement. "And he knows about you?" Jon tenses, but there's no use hiding it from Sam, who heard. "He knows what he thinks is the truth," Jon mutters. "But it doesn't matter. I'm a man of the Watch, and that's all I'll ever be." Sam eyes Jon carefully, then nods with relief. "Good. I feared you might be tempted. I know how you always dreamed of being a true Stark." Jon's throat tightens. Perhaps once he had, but that boy died in King's, landing with his father. "The Watch is my family now," he says quietly. Before Sam can respond, voices call for him to assist with a wounded brother. Sam squeezes Jon's shoulder and hurries off. Jon finds himself standing alone amid the swirl of victory and death around him. Ghost appears at his side, pressing his nose into Jon's palm. Jon kneels and scratches the dire wolf's ears. "Thank you, Ghost," he whispers. The great wolf licks Jon's face once, then stands guard faithfully at his side. Across the yard, Stannis Baratheon and his knights hoist the banners of the crowned stag and flaming heart atop the ramparts of Castle Black. The dire wolf of Stark is nowhere to be seen. No flayed man of Bolton either. The king's arrival has changed the balance dramatically in the north. By day's end, ravens are dispatched, some bearing the news to King's Landing of Stannis' unexpected triumph, others carrying demands to northern lords to gather under Stannis' banner to fight the traitorous Boltons and Freys. The Wall becomes a staging ground not just against wildlings, but for the next phase of the War of Five Kings. Yet in the shadows of the Wall's great height, the sworn brothers of the Night's Watch gather to choose a new Lord Commander. With Maester Aemon presiding, the Black Brothers cast their votes that same night, eager to have leadership with such a volatile royal presence among them. By one vote's margin, they elect Jon Snow. When his name is announced, Jon is stunned. He steps forward before the gathered brothers in the fire-lit common hall, Ghost at his side, and takes the Lord Commander's cloak upon his shoulders. Scars and bruises from the battle mark many of the men watching, but they cheer their new Lord Commander with genuine fervor. His defense of the wall and leadership during the attack earned their respect. Stannis observes the choosing from a corner with Davos at his shoulder. The king's face is unreadable as Jon accepts, the position that will forever keep him from Winterfell. Perhaps Stannis is disappointed to lose a potential Stark ally, or perhaps he is simply impatient to march on Winterfell himself. Regardless, Jon Snow is now Lord Commander Snow, bound even more tightly to duty. As the cheers in the hall die down and the brothers line up to pledge their obedience, Jon happens to meet Stannis Baratheon's eyes across the room. The king gives him the slightest nod of respect or farewell. Jon cannot be sure, then turns and walks out into the night, cloak swirling. His war awaits him. He will depart on the morrow to confront Roose Bolton. That night, when all are asleep, Jon Snow climbs the stairs to the top of the wall alone. The vast northern sky stretches above him, glittering with cold stars. Jon leans against a merlin and closes his eyes, letting the frigid wind wash over his face. He thinks of Robb, of Catelyn, of Arya, Bran, and Rickon, wherever they might be. He thinks of Ned, the father who raised him and lied to him for love. Jon has never felt so alone, yet so resolved. He is Lord Commander now. His duty is all. At that same hour, in the ruins of Winterfell, Roose Bolton stands in the Godswood, gazing at the face carved on the ancient weirwood. Blood drips from the heart tree's red leaves onto the snow below. A crow has dragged some poor victim's entrails up there from the battlefield of Winterfell's recapture. Roose barely spares it a glance. In his hand is a letter, freshly arrived by Raven. By torchlight, he reads Tywin Lannister's curt congratulations and instructions. His pale eyes linger on the lines about Jon Snow, and he snorts softly. The bastard at the wall hardly concerns Roose now. Let the Night's Watch have him, for now. Roose folds the letter and tucks it into his fur-lined cloak. He hears the distant horns of Stannis' approaching army, echoing over the dark forests outside Winterfell. The flayed man of Bolton may fly over this castle today, but tomorrow who can say? The North is a land that remembers. Roose's grip tightens on his sword hilt. Come dawn, Winterfell will once again know war. The War of Five Kings nears its end, but the peace that follows is fragile and blood-stained. Across Westeros, ravens fly bearing both tidings of victory and seeds of new conflicts yet to sprout. In the north, the flayed man of House Bolton now flies over Winterfell's blackened ruins. Roose Bolton, newly named Warden of the North, strides through the castle's shattered yard with quiet confidence. Yet, as cold winds whistle through burned timbers, he cannot ignore the uneasy stares of the northern folk under his command. They obey out of fear, not loyalty. Bolton fingers a raven scroll from Lord Tywin in his gloved hand. Congratulations on his new title, and a curt reminder to eliminate any remaining Stark loyalists or loose ends, including a certain black brother of interest. Roose allows himself a thin smile. His bastard son Ramsay already hunts the surviving Ironborn holding Moat Cailin, and Roose has quietly dispatched hunters to scour the Wolfswood for rumors of a surviving Stark boy. As for Jon Snow at the wall, Roose tucks the letter away. The bastard is the Night's Watch's concern for now. If Tywin wants him dealt with, Roose will oblige when the time comes, but greater concerns loom. For word has reached the Dreadfort. Stannis Baratheon has taken up residence at Castle Black, calling northern bannermen to avenge the Red Wedding and proclaiming himself true king. A Southron army in the north so soon was not part of Tywin's carefully laid plans. Roose knows he must marshal his forces and the Freys to face Stannis before the Southern King can rally the heart of the North against the Bolton name. In Winterfell's Godswood, the Heart Tree's red eyes seem to weep for what has become of the North. Bolton's men sharpen their blades, knowing another battle approaches in the snow. At Castle Black, the Night's Watch elects a new Lord Commander amid the turmoil. By a margin of 1 vote, Jon Snow is chosen over his rivals, raised to lead despite his youth. Jon stands before his black brothers in the frosty air, humbled and resolute as they hail him with the Lord Commander's cloak upon his shoulders. Stannis Baratheon watches from the sidelines, lips pressed thin. He had privately hoped to claim Jon Snow for Winterfell, legitimizing him as a Stark to win Northern support for his cause. But Jon's unexpected ascension to Lord Commander places him forever out of reach of inheritance or alliance. Duty-bound to the Watch, Jon politely declines Stannis' offers, insisting the Night's Watch must remain neutral. Stannis leaves Castle Black with a mix of respect and frustration toward the young man. The king turns his attention to the campaign ahead. With Melisandre's fiery faith and the hard steel of his Southron knights, he marches his forces south, from the Wall, through windswept tundra toward Winterfell. The orange glow of their campfires moves slowly over the snowy plains, a beacon of hope for some Northerners, an omen of war for others. Behind Stannis' host trail, hundreds of wildling prisoners turned unlikely allies. Jon brokered a truce allowing Mance Raider's people to kneel to Stannis for protection. The Free Folk have chosen what they hope is the lesser enemy, though they grumble at bending the knee. In King's Landing, black banners hang for a mourning period, but the business of the realm continues at Tywin Lannister's swift pace. Young King Tommen is crowned with minimal fanfare, a boy of 8 with gentle manners and a pliable will. As Tommen sits the Iron Throne, purring at the touch of his kittens even during court, it is Tywin who truly rules. The Lion of Lannister wastes no time moving past Joffrey's horrors. Tommen's reign will be one of stability and reconciliation, Tywin declares. He finalizes marriage contracts. Tommen will wed Margaery Tyrell to cement the crown's alliance with Highgarden anew. Cersei Lannister, though reluctant to yield her remaining son, is promised in marriage to no one. Tywin had considered sending her to the Vale or Dorne, but that can wait. Instead, Cersei focuses her ire on finding her brother Tyrion. The little Kingslayer's escape gnaws at her. She hounds Uncle Kevin and the Goldcloaks for updates, but Tyrion has vanished without a trace. Some whisper Varys smuggled him across the narrow sea. Cersei vows that if Tyrion ever resurfaces, no trial will be needed. She will have his head. Lord Tywin feigns indifference at Tyrion's flight, treating it as a blemish best quietly forgotten. Publicly, the Hand issues a bounty on the Kingslayer dwarf, but privately, he anticipates Tyrion will keep his head down in exile to avoid Lannister assassins. Still, Tywin does not underestimate his son entirely. Should Tyrion seek refuge with enemies of the crown, that could prove troublesome. On Tywin's orders, agents in Essos keep their ears open for any sign of a clever, sharp-tongued dwarf in the courts of Pentos or Meereen. Beyond the narrow sea, in fact, a certain Pentoshi villa has welcomed 2 new guests, Tyrion Lannister and Lord Varys. Arrive in the manse of Illyrio Mopatis under cover of darkness. There, Tyrion drowns his guilt and pain in endless cups of sweet wine as Illyrio and Varys whisper of a queen with dragons who might welcome a Lannister with inside knowledge of the Iron Throne. Though heartsick and angry, Tyrion's clever mind begins to stir with a new sense of purpose, and perhaps vengeance. when he hears word that Daenerys Targaryen has 3 young dragons and a conquering horde at her back. A dragon queen could be the key to upending everything Tywin has built, if properly counseled. Tyrion does not yet decide his course, but a spark lights in his eyes once more as he contemplates a future far from his father's shadow. Across the narrow sea in Meereen, Daenerys Targaryen holds court as queen, her freedmen cheering her rule. But in quiet moments, she stands atop her pyramid and gazes west. Rumors swirl of the upheavals in Westeros, the death of kings, the rise of a boy on the Iron Throne, the savage Red Wedding that wiped out her last perceived rival pretender, Robb Stark. One rumor in particular troubles her. Whispers that Rhaegar's long-lost son may have lived after all, hidden in the far north. If true, this lost prince could complicate her own claim. Daenerys looks to her dragons, now growing larger each day as they soar above the city, and wonders if Westeros will remember the promise of fire and blood soon to come. For now, she waits and plans, never imagining that even as she dreams of Westeros, a Lannister outcast may soon come seeking her favor. As fall winds sweep the continent, new and old powers prepare to collide. In the Twins, Walder Frey feasts and congratulates himself on outliving and outmaneuvering all his enemies, unaware that in the Vale of Arryn, young Lord Robert Arryn and Peter Baelish receive Sansa Stark into their protection. Under Baelish's watch, the embers of Stark vengeance quietly glow, not extinguished after all. And far beyond the concerns of thrones and crowns, north of the Wall in the heart of a haunted forest, cold blue eyes open. Ancient, malevolent figures stir in the darkness. The White Walkers begin to move south, their undead ranks growing silently. A long winter draws closer with each passing day, and the realms of men remain divided and blind to the true threat creeping toward them. At the Red Keep, Tywin Lannister stands atop the ramparts one evening, gazing toward the distant northern horizon as if he could see the wars to come. Beside him, the boy King Tommen plays with Sir Pounce, giggling as the kitten bats at the royal cloak. Tommen's innocence reminds Tywin of another boy long ago, his own son Jaime at that age, before pride and war hardened both of them. Tywin rests a hand on Tommen's shoulder, steadying the child as he points out the lights of the city below where small folk begin to light evening lanterns. "You will be a better king than the last, Tommen," Tywin says quietly, resolutely. The boy nods, trusting his grandfather implicitly. As stars prick the sky one by one, Tywin allows himself a rare moment of contemplation. He has navigated the Lannister ship through storm and shoal, victory and war, vengeance on the Starks, alliances secured, a new king guided by his hand. Yet the cost has been high. Tywin's green eyes harden as he thinks of Tyrion's empty seat at council, of Cersei's fraying sanity, of Jaime's reluctance toward the future Tywin planned for him. Still, better they live and resent him than lie dead like so many other families' heirs. What is legacy if not a garden one cultivates knowing he may not see all the blossoms? Tywin has tilled the soil with blood and strategy. Let the seeds grow as they may. A chill wind blows in from the west, and Tywin instinctively pulls Tommen a little closer to shield him. Winter is coming, so the Starks used to warn. Tywin intends that House Lannister will be prepared when it arrives, come snow or storm or dragon's fire. Far off in the gathering dusk, a lone wolf's howl echoes from the Riverlands, unanswered. A queen's dragon screeches under the eastern stars, and on the wall of ice, a horn sounds a single blast, signaling brothers returning from arranging, though in time it may sound thrice for things far worse. The night is dark and full of uncertainties, but as Tywin Lannister turns from the battlements and leads young King Tommen back inside the Red Keep's warm halls, he carries with him the cold certainty that whatever darkness lies ahead, be it the vengeance of enemies or the grasp of winter itself, he will face it with the same uncompromising will that has brought House Lannister this far. The Lion of the Rock does not intend to yield Westeros to any foe, living or dead. Remember, 5,000 likes and we'll release part 2. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the 7 kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.